So basically, I want to say the end of anybody's time, they act like it's that's how selfish they are. They act like it's like the end of everybody. You ever see it's the end of your shift. You know what I'm saying? People are still gonna be working around the clock and doing what they have to do. But I understand you have to make sure that you put things in your copy and make sure things go good for the next person's shit and do that. But they said that they're gonna go to and fro and try to take everybody down with them. It's the end of their time. And if you look at how history repeats itself, you see there's a repetitive cycle. Things manifest. Energy is energy, and things manifest in their own form. We're manifestations of the energy, or we're vessels for the energy, whatever. Or we are the energy. Who knows? Because they say that solids vibrate at a certain rate. So if we were actually, they vibrate at such a rate that it's a solid. It's even like anything that you see solid, it vibrates at a certain level, which is very interesting. So it's just like if you can find a way to control the vibrational rate of the chemical elements of objects and stuff like that, you would be able to control their composition or how they're formed or the many levels to that. So I can tell that science goes in many different important directions. The fact that they can't cure a disease that they've been propagating and giving fake medicine to put you in a cycle with it for years now is beyond me, but it shouldn't be beyond everybody else because I'm not even probably as bright as a lot of these people. But anyway, a lot of these people do these things, but there's a term called passing the torch. I find this term interesting because passing the torch is usually like if you have an apprenticeship or you pass an idea on to somebody else, you say you're passing the torch or something like that, so that they can get it lit. But, this is also something that was carried on to the Olympic Games. It's a metaphorical thing in the Olympic Games because they had the Prometheus thing stealing fire from the gods. Why would he have to steal fire from the gods? Watch how I break this down. Everybody's mythology usually speaks about the people, therefore, they want to find a way to express themselves or their culture and stuff like that. So everybody knows that it originated from Egypt, and you have Ethiopia and Sumeria and all these other people and the Hindu doctrine and things that predate a lot of the things that they're speaking, and these similarities. A lot of times it's just because of chemistry. A lot of people observe great minds think alike. So if you're a genius at figuring out things, because a lot of times they say observe nature, and your answers are in nature. You can see how a lot of people say, oh, I know the tiger style, I know this. Why? Because they observed those things, and they're like, oh yeah, the way they attack or the way they do things, I'm gonna name this that because it carries the characteristics or something like that. Purple drink. It's purple drink, but it's probably based off of grape or whatever the hell it is, and they'll call it grape drink or something like that because it's based off of the characteristics of grape, even if it probably isn't. Like how herb, they called it weed, but it's not a weed. Weeds kill all the plants in the yard. If anything, it helps people stay alive in the yard or something. And weeds kill all the plants when you're harvesting something. Weed doesn't. If anything, it'll probably cross-pollinate or something, but I don't think it's going to kill the rest of the plants in the garden. Weeds do. But if they're trying to kill something that helps everybody, what would that make them? So you see how there's layers to things. So then you have to do a combination of things, and then you get right back to the point and show them what their original intent is. Because they don't want you healed. They don't want those things because they have a market for what they have. With artificial things, and a lot of times it's biodegradable and it's bad towards nature. Look at art because it shows what people want to do. That shit, but you gotta tell them that. Like, did you know that this is hurting nature? Now, if they don't do anything to change it, that would show what side that they're on. Because now they have the knowledge and the wisdom of what they were doing. They probably knew it on a level, but when you give them the real level and they still continue, that's on them. That's why they had those things like the emerald tablets and stuff like that, where it was like, you're responsible for what you know, because they know you know it. It's not no forgive them for they not know what they do. At the end times, all the truth is going to be out there. They're still going to choose to do what they want to do just because of why? Their selfish satisfaction. That's usually cheap. It's actually more fulfilling to do the opposite. But they're such cowards that they stay in that fake comfort zone of abiding by lies. Simpler to do. And it's easier to follow trends. And sometimes trends are cool, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can blend in and they won't have problems themselves. I don't necessarily know how that goes. But anyway, the topics I'm going to try to go on and talk on random is going to be, I'm trying to cover, like, degrees of the parasitic conspiracy. It's not necessarily a race Not even orientation. I'm gonna say just like Africans have a history, Europeans have a history. People want to talk about, oh, I went to Africa, but they don't treat us like real people in their land. We're still slaves. And when you go here, somebody they call them booty scratchers. They discriminatory or got their own people. Say there were Indians, there were black people on this land before the Africans came here. It doesn't matter. The fact is, it's one planet, and people injustice is whacked towards everybody. Let's just get that under agreement. And lying in history books is also a tactic and very bad and stuff. So when we start pointing the finger at the things that are really the problem, you need unity first. And there's a reason why they do things. So making people aware instead of just, people want to look at anything. Like now they just have like all these freaking, if UFOs want to do whatever the hell, you were never on that level of government to control what the fuck the UFO is going to tell the goddamn president. Why don't you work on doing something on your level? Like making sure the dentists don't put something in your children's mouth that can cause a problem when they're later on. Because guess what? If you think it's a joke and you think it's a conspiracy that I'm talking about since I was young, I know Bruce Leroy, they shot mercury they shot him in his mouth. And he, you know what I'm saying? But he caught it. In Hollywood, you can catch a bullet in your teeth. Right? But if they put a filling in your teeth that can give you cancer or a brain disease and a heart disease, you're not going to link that to when God is touching Adam in his finger and it looks like there's a bunch of boys with makeup on and it's his heart and his brain, because they knew the heart and the brain had a connection. That's why people just didn't do art. They knew there was a science to it. They got to practice love. That's the love that they practice. And through the love that they got to experience in their life, you probably never even got to take your girl to get a burger and fries because you didn't even get enough money on your McDonald's job and somebody else took her out. But you can't hate on her because that's going to be misguided and you have to find a way to exist yourself, right? But the love that they got to express and practice all the time is on the Sistine Chapel. You see a grown man, seems of Caucasian descent, exposing his butt. It was like a Bible quote, like as if that's reaching goddom. It's like a bunch of old white guys with muscles holding babies with makeup, and they got to express their romance, and that's what they figured out about love. They reached the love frequency doing that. We can't even keep marriages together nowadays, let alone the Sweet 16. That's why they regarded everybody as prostitutes and all this stuff. Because they would liberate their mind. They're like, yeah, what they're teaching you isn't really anything. That's why some of those women liberated their mind and they wrote them out of the Bible. They were like, they didn't really have to teach. God said, study nature. And then you'll discern and sort out from whatever. Obviously, there was trial and error. It's plural. It's not like he probably knew one person. There was probably a few people that he freaking knew. That was the characteristics of those things until you find something that works for you, and vice versa. They had him to study nature and stuff like that. And they come up with all these tales and what he could have done and all these. Those are all possibilities. It's just chemistry. They're trying to start something anew. That's why they're trying to fuck up the process all the time. You got to watch out. My name was Gabriel Adam Saint. I'm not scared of saying my name, but if I say my name, they try to corrupt my name. They try to take my name and curse my name since I was a baby. And they continue on that program. And then you go, oh yeah, I was born in 1984. I was born in May. I'm my parents' son. I'm the middle of 7 children. I'm not saying I'm better. That's the way I came into this world. The world doing with me. That's a reflection of your own society. And why? Also, because they have preconceived notions that, for whatever, you can do your own research in a library if you want. But the fact is, like there's a one lady, they take original things. The Sophia Stewart, I know, I don't know about the copyright thing. I don't want to get sued. I don't want to mention her name if you got to have copyright. But she originally created the blueprint for the Terminator and the Matrix. And I wanted to say that it's not just the Terminator and the Matrix. I used to can't go to sleep, so I used to watch Cinemax and HBO. And there were so many horrible, futuristic and past movies that were like martial arts and kickboxing and laser fighting movies and stuff like that. And they made so many horrible movies that you could get at Blockbuster and stuff like that. That was based off of one black woman's script. That's how unoriginal they are, and that's how much of a parasite they are. And if you expose this nature, they're going to feel vulnerable. And nobody likes to feel vulnerable, but why do they always try to make you and your family feel vulnerable? They lack carbon, that 666 that they call the devil, but they always want it. And they're crazy, and they can't heal themselves. Dopamine and neuron things. They release chemicals. That's why he said, heal thyself. Jesus knew that you can heal thyself. You have chemicals inside of your body, just like nature has all the chemicals, but they're so artificial that they don't produce those chemicals. There's a problem with their neuron receptors and their dopamine receptors, and also the parts of your brain that you've never unlocked yet. Oh, probably some people have. Probably some horrible people have unlocked parts of their brain because they need it for survival. Because to steal your energy, they have to be aware of certain things. So that's the reason why their brain works a certain type of way. And they want you to look like that so that they don't look at them as the prototype of people that are doing what they're doing. It's a tactic for them to live amongst the people. They believe that they're an alien or this and that. They're just probably a deranged human being that has been around for a while, and they're not stupid. They have to be smart to their degree to stay alive. So anyway, back to the parasitic conspiracy. If you look at the characteristics of a parasite, they want to attach to something and live off of its fucking energy. And that's the first thing they indoctrinate you since you're born. They say also the medicine you don't even really need. You have an amniotic sac. Why do they take the liquid and the powder in the body and all that stuff? No, they say eat this, the flesh and the blood and stuff like that. So when you're born, all of that has your DNA and your information in it. That's why they have what's your contact information, what's your emergency contact. Like those are all encoded in your DNA and stuff like that. So if you needed a cure, your body would know what your body needs since its inception to cure it. That's why they would turn their amniotic sacs into powder and carry it in a pouch. So that if they ever had medicine for a disease, they would take the medicine and mix it with their own powdered DNA. So it would be custom fitted to their own body and it would cure them. Not a bunch of artificial things that are for somebody who hates you. That's why a lot of your food gives you high blood pressure and kills you, but there seems to be nothing going on with it. Their people are naturally like that. It's in their history that you look at Greek, look at Roman, look at all these other people. It's naturally that they've always had that. That's why they're fighting so much that we're just like this. But it's like, why do you have to be malicious towards other people just because of how you are? That's the problem. Control your bad people. We're not saying you can't be who you are. I don't give a fuck. We weren't even aware of you until you tried to fucking ram our innocence or our land from the fucking rear side and take it over. And then you find out about the good ship Jesus and stuff like that. You see, I'd say this because somebody told me it's good to know those things, but can you relate those things to your own life? And I said, yeah, I had to do that. And then when I did, that's when it revealed most of the shit, because I was going to say, yeah, fuck all that shit. What the fuck am I paying attention to all these things? Like, I might as well incorporate myself in stuff and just, do things my own way. Why condemn everything and not want to be a part of it? Because I didn't know how far it went, like a root canal. When you do a root canal, you go into the tooth, you dig into the tooth, and you take out the infection and stuff like that. And at the same time they were doing that, it was like a ritual for the life and the things I wasn't paying attention to. And they put that infection there, and they were telling me that, like weed smoke and stuff like that is a spiritual thing. So a lot of them were targeted. So if you went to the dentist can tell if you smoke weed because they're scraping your teeth. And they might do something to you because it's a spiritual thing and they're evil. They don't want exactly. They want pollution in the air. They don't want you breathe out the bad spirit and, whatever, the energy and stuff like that. So that's a natural thing that grows in nature. That's why they would call it and outlaw that plant, because they are evil and they do feel the impact of the shift because they're doing horrible things to the people and that calms them down. They'll do that to people too. That's why, you can pray on a rock, but you got to go to the forest, the burning bush and all this stuff. That's their metaphors. You can go to Ethiopia for a big book and, if you think that their parchment is the best transcribed piece of that story. And it's for some people. It's not for everybody. It was for the high priest. That's why they say you're high. Because what sits up on high. And it's not for everybody. That's not for them. They don't have the same problems as the hybrid. They don't perceive things as the hybrid. They don't need to calm down those neurons. They don't have spiritual psychic attacks. They're not under those things. And it's like they say you're ordained to be these people. Some people don't want to be those people. They call those people crazy because they perceive things that people don't perceive. So they label them crazy. And they label them all these things and they increase the pressure because that's those people who, it's either you have it all, you have it, or you don't. And if you're on the middle path, that person has his own story. I'm not against other people doing it. Like I like different kinds of music, and even if I don't like the different kind of some music, I don't like because I understand like there's probably an agenda behind it. But some other things, I'm just like, nah, I just don't dig it. It's not that it's bad. It's just I don't like it. a lot of people can't, and no, if you don't like it, it has to be horrible. And then they like become obsessed with it. And it's like, if you don't like it, why are you obsessed with it trying to find something wrong about it? It should be something automatic. Like, no, that's the first sign I got to make me not a lie or a rumor that gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, your reputation precedes you. Basically, the Terminator effect and things like that. So it's hard to discern between different decisions when you're dealing with things. Because everything is like a gamble nowadays. And a lot of people, isn't gambling addictive? They're trying to make like life is addictive, like everything's a fucking gamble, but you gotta make it anyway. And it's like different level degrees to the gambles that they want you to play. And if it's being dictated by people who like to gamble with nature and life and stuff like that, it's unfair for the people that don't know how they make these laws and do things, because they're gambling with their own lives, and then everybody has to be enraptured in their decisions. So it very is important for people to get involved, but not, you know, just because some Karen is talking about why you shouldn't vote for somebody doesn't mean you have to fucking wholeheartedly just listen to what they say and then that's it. But then again, people are like that. That's why a lot of times they won't teach you that. In the Vatican, they teach the priests. They say humans can't comprehend the spiritual knowledge of God. That's why we have to teach them. Basically, they're saying these people are inferior and we have to teach them. But if they're doing that, why is it so corrupt? Why are they abusing a lot of the people? Why are they finding out so many war crimes from World War, whatever the fuck, and then working and collaborating with other people to cause problems for other people if they're so holy? And I'm not saying that all of them are involved, but if you're going to have people guilty by accomplices, right, guilty by association, then why the fuck are none of them are guilty by association if they're working from the top of the Vatican and they know how the Bible got in their fucking pocket since they got there? So it's these questions that people don't ask, because it separates church and state. Why? Because the spirit is supposed to be more physical or whatever, and then they just do things. But they collaborate all the time. So there's always divide and conquer. Like, they all work together in anything. I'm not going to... If you want to get jelly from the store, and you go, I got $3, and you can go to the store, that's conspiracy. Because you conspired together to get something. It's not a big-ass fucking word. It's just that when they're caught doing something horrible with that word, they want to act like it's just something that's a myth. It's an urban legend and stuff. But when people like me speak up, they were trying to make us go crazy. I'm supposed to be yelling. I'm supposed to be screaming. I was sometimes, but it's only because they were trying to discredit me. Before, I used to talk since I was a child. People like me were harassed a lot. And a lot of times they attack the silent ones because they don't like to talk. And then when they do talk, they're going to talk crazy because they don't even like to talk. So that's not necessarily the best thing. I don't like to talk. It's just that, you know, I have YouTube now, so you can, you know what I'm saying, elaborate on certain things that people can't build upon. They just do things about it, like nature. Like, words are actually the last thing that you can just... But you know what I'm saying? Like, people do things. They try to make it look barbaric, but it's just like the only time they use words is when they lie. But their actions speak louder than their words. They're just like, we're going to tear down your city and do whatever the fuck we want, but we're going to have this freaking, you know, town hall meeting and act like we give a fuck about your opinion before we do what we want to do anyway. We're just trying to act civil about it. You know, and America did do that. People have been doing that for years. So, if you think that's a game, that's why I want to introduce the parasitic conspiracy. Because it's actually proven the fact that a lot of them aren't original. They take over other things. They invade corporations and then corrupt from the inside, like a disease. If you see an immune system, they compromise the immune system and then they invade and infect it there such. And so I'm not necessarily against a religion. It's just that if I have to defend myself, yeah, I'm going to go, why do you call yourself Mormons if the word more in your Bible, I'm going to show you how you're a crazy person. All right? 666 and all that shit, all these, you know, a lot of people, they were racist, they were doing research and stuff like that, and all that stuff, and then all those Satanists are finding out it's just carbon and science and all this stuff. And now that, if they do the science, a lot of the people that propagate that aren't part of that science. So they propagate something that's not them, and then they want to consume those things so they can be that which they are not. All right, now I don't want to sound racist or prejudiced. All right, but there's a lot of unfair things. I don't think that abuse of anybody, no matter who you are, especially if you're different, because artists and people, we like diverse people, so that's not the problem. It's just addressing the truth is always a problem. They think they have immunity. Like, no, people are always going to be, I don't care what color you are, people are prone to be bad no matter who you are. You can't be happy all the time because we have a range of emotions. And that's a sign of mental illness. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't go to attack people, but it's just like, do you really know that this is systemic and it stems from, all right, the black woman was attacked and abused just so that she can support her family, but they didn't know that what they did to the man, they would do that to emasculate him systematically and physically in front of the family, and he wouldn't even be able to talk about it because he would sound what? Not like a man. You're not supposed to complain about your problems, but they would do him the worst in front of the family. They would do it's bad for both of them. They would do like, do you think she wants to do that? She has to do all those things, and then she has to come home. So now they modeled society after that. So now it's like, she's not necessarily going to go out and cheat on you and get money from the slave master, and probably the baby is going to look like more of like her boss than you and stuff like that. It's probably not so extreme. However, you best believe they're going to be somebody else's secretary. Secretary is not just business. That means that they're their aide, they're their confidant. They help them with decisions, life decisions that help them in life and stuff like that. They're giving that, and every second you can't get back. That's why families are important, but they devalue it because you're on a conveyor belt and everything is mass produced and not recognized for what it is. So while your husband or wife is not being a secretary and a confidant for somebody's business, your family may be turning into shambles or not. I'm not going to create the worst case scenario, but there's things that time that you're investing in that business and that man and that woman or their businesses, that's the time that you're sacrificing that you could be putting into your own child that you created and brought into this world, which is a responsibility from the universe, not just a responsibility from the corporation. And it's very easy to forget about that. We forget about those things every day. That's the challenge. Because people think that, oh yeah, you can forget about these things because it's just a moral thing. But when things actually happen in their physical life because of their neglect of the energy of things, that's when they start to try to find shortcuts. That's when they try to start sacrificing people. That's when they try to catch up on all the things that they've done, and they try to find shortcuts. And they think that if they can find some voodoo way of stealing somebody's energy, or I'm not stealing the baby's blood, but I'm stealing their attention or their things, or I'm just what I'm saying. They do all these other things, so it's a metaphor that I'm stealing their blood, and some people physically do it. And so that's how desperate they get. But these rituals and these lines and these things come from somewhere. And when people see the origin of it, even the word origin, you have an aura, and jinn was the name of a spirit. Like demon wasn't evil. Demon was evil when they translated it because Greeks were a bunch of evil. There was a lot of evil demon Greeks and stuff. And you get the word demon from Greek. That's what he translated in the Bible. And a lot of them were evil people that they didn't want touching their kids. I don't have to bring a chorus about it or something like that, but when they pointed to their mouth, it wasn't to be quiet about things. It was pointing to their mouth. It was a symbol for wisdom. And the child's mother was the wisdom. And the son was the rebirth of the father. It was a correlation of life. It wasn't the secret that they have to keep between them and the Vatican, but they'll probably get perks into society that when they run out, that's when it's going to probably turn into a lawsuit.